Unveiled, the sinister cult of the Bellamy Dynasty, terrifying secrets of their cursed millions. The sun had long set, and the orange glow of streetlights felt like distant beacons in the encroaching darkness of Maplewood. Samantha, exhausted from a long shift, sat hunched on the couch, her children nestled beside her. Outside, the wind whispered things she couldn't quite decipher, sending chills down her spine. It was just another ordinary evening, yet a heavy sense of dread clung to the air like oppressive fog. As she nursed her weariness, her phone buzzed again, another unknown number, another message that made her gut knot. "You're in danger." Panic ignited in her heart. Where was this coming from? The once cheerful hum of crickets had turned into an unsettling chorus, each chirp sounding like a warning bell. Then, she remembered the box. The forgotten one buried in the attic, calling her amidst her desperate life, a hidden weight of family history. With her heart racing, she clambered up the attic stairs into the musty darkness, each step creaking like an old horror movie cliché. Dust motes danced in the dim light as she rummaged through the box, unearthing family keepsakes that whispered the ghosts of her past. A faded newspaper clipping slipped from the pile, a headline so shocking it made her blood run cold: "The Bellamy Dynasty, Secrets of Cursed Wealth." As she read, the world outside faded away. The Bellamy family had vanished under peculiar circumstances, leaving behind a legacy steeped in fear and whispered rumors of dark rituals. Her breath quickened, yet, a horrifying curiosity pulled her deeper into the article's sinister narrative. The wealth was alluring, but the price? It felt like the spine-chilling touch of a hand on her shoulder, warning her to stop. "Mom!" A voice broke her from the trance, her 6-year-old looking at her with wide frightened eyes. In their innocence, they sensed the ripple of unease flooding their small home. "Did you hear that?" Swallowing her fear, she forced a smile. "It's just the wind, sweetie." But deep down, dread swirled like a tempest, slowly tightening its grip. Days passed, and the strangeness grew. Symbols appeared overnight, chalked on sidewalks, a snake spiraling into an eye, staring back at her. Light bulbs flickered, shadows danced when she wasn't looking, and her once kind neighbors turned cold, eyes filled with distrust. The mayor, the embodiment of community, was now a figure draped in secrecy, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the veil of normalcy thinned, the shadows loomed larger, feeding on her fears. One haunting night, a neighbor emerged from the shadows, eyes frantic. "You shouldn't be out here at night," he warned, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "There's something they don't want you to know." His words echoed ominously, tying the dark threads of the Bellamy mystery to her own family history. What secrets had her mother hidden? What dark bargains had the Bellamys struck? Just then, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, the heart-stopping cry of her children. Adrenaline surged as she sprinted toward home, the street warped and threatening under the pale moonlight. She fumbled at the door, fear clawing at her throat. What awaited her inside would shatter everything she thought she knew. The monstrous reality of Maplewood was far darker than she'd ever imagined, and the true price of normalcy was just a heartbeat away. Samantha burst through the door, breathless and wild-eyed. The house felt cavernous, the silence oppressive. Where were her children? Panic clawed at her throat as she called their names, her voice echoing in the emptiness. "Emma! Jake!" The shadows danced in the corners, stretching ominously as dread flooded her veins. She rushed towards the kitchen, but only the cold glow of the refrigerator light greeted her. Heart racing, she turned, determined to check the living room, and then she saw them. Her children stood together, frozen by the window, their tiny bodies rigid as they pointed outside. "Mom," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. We saw something. Something. Samantha moved closer, her palms sweaty and cold. She followed their gaze to the darkened street, and her breath hitched. A figure loomed there, barely distinguishable in the murk. The shape flickered under the sodium lights, casting strange, elongated shadows. A chill raced down her spine. "Get away from the window," she ordered, but the children were mesmerized, their wide eyes locked onto the figure. "Mom, it's staring at us," Jake said, voice quaking. The figure shifted, and Samantha felt the weight of its gaze. It felt like a hand gripping her throat, squeezing tighter. In that fleeting moment, the world outside transformed. She could see it more clearly. The white robe, the hood obscuring its face, its movements eerily fluid. A low murmuring reached her ears, incoherent words punctuated by raspy breaths. "Get away from there!" she screamed, her feet carrying her forward as if on instinct. The children stepped back, startled, releasing the hold the figure had cast over them. Samantha yanked them to her, her heartbeat drowning out the strange whispers. "Let us check the back door," she commanded, anxiety radiating from her. She pulled them through the house, frantically scanning for an escape route. As they reached the back door, a jarring knock reverberated through the house, heavy and deliberate. It rattled the framed pictures on the walls, and Samantha felt instinctual terror. Who could it be? Before she had time to decide, the children gasped. The figure had moved, now standing just outside the back door, its presence a silhouette against the dull sky. They could see its hood, but the face remained hidden. Samantha took a shaky step back, holding her children close. "We need to go," she panted, pulling them toward the basement door. The neat, safe home had become a labyrinth of danger. She longed to escape into the darkness below, but just as they reached the stairs, the back door rattled with a forceful slam. The doorknob twisted, and she heard the soft rustle of something sliding against wood. A shudder coursed through her body. "Mom, what is it?" Emma whimpered, burying her face against her side. "I don't know, honey." Suddenly, something scraped against the wood, like a sharp nail dragging across the surface. It sent a pulse of dread through her, freezing her in place. "Mom! Lock the door!" Jake urged, eyes as wide as saucers. Samantha turned back just in time to see the figure's hand curling around the doorknob. The soft chanting grew louder, a chilling almost symphony that wrapped around her like a blanket of fear. With trembling hands, she fumbled for the lock, adrenaline surging. They had to get away, but what awaited them in the dark depths? Before she could secure the door, it exploded inward with a deafening crash. The figure stood there, a dark sentinel, shrouded in an impenetrable aura. "You cannot hide forever," it rasped, the voice dripping with malice as thick as the late-night fog that hung heavily outside. Samantha's heartbeat drummed in her ears as she gripped her children tighter, her mind racing for a plan. Unraveling the Bellamy secrets was no longer just a chilling curiosity, it was now a matter of survival. But what kind of price would they demand? With every instinct screaming, she turned to flee down the steps, hoping the shadows might offer some protection from the darkness creeping ever closer. As they descended into the basement, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was just behind them, waiting for the moment they let their guard down. But there, in the pit of her despair, a singular thought remained. Somewhere, hidden among the bones of her family's history, lay the truth, and it just might be the only thing standing between her children's lives and the encroaching terror. What secrets lay buried in the darkness? The basement door thudded closed behind them, sealing them in darkness. A musty smell filled the air, thick with the scent of mildew and old wood. Samantha's heart raced, a thunderous drum against her ribs as she scanned the space, searching for anything, an object, a weapon, a way out. "Stay close to me," she whispered, grasping the hands of Emma and Jake tightly. She felt their small fingers tremble in her grasp. The shadows loomed, a suffocating presence pressing in from all sides. "Mom, what is that?" Jake pointed at a corner, his voice wavering. A flicker of movement caught her eye, something shifting amid the crates piled haphazardly against the wall. "Nothing. Just old stuff," she replied, but unease clawed at her throat. Those old things could be just as dangerous as the figure above. The murmur from the figure seemed to seep through the very walls of the house, echoing in the back of her mind, growing louder and more insistent. She squeezed her children's hands. We need to find a way out through here. Is it gone? Emma's voice trembled, filled with dread. I don't know, sweetie, Samantha said, fighting the rising panic within her. They had to keep moving, or risk whatever was hunting them closing in. The basement was more than just a refuge, it was a tomb. With hesitant steps, Samantha led the way deeper into the shadows. Old photographs littered the walls, faces twisted and gaunt, laughing eerily, their eyes seeming to follow her. Each step sent jolts of fear through her, every creak of the floorboard underfoot amplified. She fought the urge to turn back, to flee. But what awaited them above? The murmurs intensified, and Samantha couldn't make out the words. It felt like they were being woven into a sickly lullaby. Mom, I can't hear it, Emma's voice cracked. Shoo, she hushed, freezing in place. The chilling truth sprayed cold water down her back. A whisper mixed with the faint cackle of laughter drifted up through the cracks. Suddenly, her eyes caught a glint in the corner of the basement. A shadowy figure slinked out and froze, eyes shining like small lanterns in the gloom. In that instant, she recognized it as nothing but an old mannequin, clothed in a tattered dress, the fabric hanging like ghostly remnants of a past life. Relief washed over her, but it frayed quickly as the whispering crescendoed. Mom, we need to go, now, Jake urged, pulling her toward a staircase leading upward. Coiling dread squeezed her lungs. I don't think we can go back up there, she whispered, but there was little choice. The basement walls seemed to pulse with danger, closing in around them as more shadows edged forward. There's got to be a way out, she said, forcing her mind to focus. Perhaps she could find another exit, a window, anything other than facing that figure again. As she scanned the space, a wooden door loomed at the far end, its surface cracked and dull. Hope flared, maybe that was their escape. She pulled her children along, feeling the urgency of each moment propelling them closer to safety. Mom! Emma shouted, her voice high and panicky. Samantha turned to see what had startled her. Jake was pointing behind them. The figure was there, as if it had melted from the shadows, its hooded head tilted to one side. The whispers morphed, forming a singular word that echoed. Belong. Samantha's heart raced. What twisted meaning lay behind that word? Run! She screamed, yanking Jake and Emma towards the door, desperation fueling her speed. The footsteps were close now, every heavy thud sending shocks through the floor, resonating in her bones. They reached for the door handle. Samantha's breath hitched at the sound of nails scraping against wood, the insistent murmuring now turning to frantic chants. The door seemed to resist, as if it held a memory of its own. Would it hold them back or lead them further into despair? Open, open, open. She yelled, fear coursing through her veins as she twisted the handle with all her strength, praying for escape. What awaited them on the other side? It felt as if the darkness itself was laughing at their plight, eager to draw them back into its grasp. As the door creaked open, a gust of cold air surged in, carrying haunting whispers that promised more than just danger. What would they find outside? Would freedom lie beyond or something far worse? The door swung open with a groan that resonated in the empty basement. Samantha's breath caught in her throat as the cold air billowed in, swirling past her like a taunting specter. It beckoned her forward, filled with an unnatural chill that whispered promises of unimaginable terror just beyond the threshold. Go! She pushed Emma and Jake, their small bodies stumbling into the passage, hearts pounding in rhythm with the terror that clung to them like a shroud. The air outside felt heavier, more threatening than the stale confines of the basement. Shadows danced beyond the doorway, and the dim light flickering from an overhead bulb sent feeble beams through the dark. They staggered into a narrow corridor lined with peeling floral wallpaper, the faded colors curling at the edges as if trying to escape the decay. The musty scent from the basement followed them, only now it was intermingled with something sweeter, more rancid, a mix of mold and something that smelled disturbingly like rot. "Where are we?" Jake whispered, his voice trembling, eyes wide. "I don't know," Samantha replied, her heart racing as a low droning sound rippled through the walls, echoing like a distant chant. It was a sound that made her skin prickle and her gut twist, as if something was lurking nearby, hungry. Before she could gather her thoughts, a door at the end of the corridor creaked open too, but instead of leading them to safety, it revealed a dimly lit room that seemed to pulse with energy. "Mom, we shouldn't go in there," Emma pleaded, clutching at Samantha's dressing, but as they stood frozen, debating uncertainty, a figure appeared in the doorway, tall, cloaked, obscured by shadow. The overwhelming urge to flee gripped Samantha at the sight of the shadowy presence, but her feet felt glued to the floor. "Belong." The word resonated again, deeper this time, wrapping around her like icy fingers. Samantha felt dread spilling over her, like cold water, soaking into her bones. Who was this figure? What did it want? "Mom! Let us go." Jake tugged at her hand, pulling her back as the figure took a cautious step forward. Instinct kicked in, and she sprinted down the corridor, dragging her children along. They flew past the door to the ominous room without hesitating, relying solely on their fight-or-flight instinct. The chanting grew louder now, filling her head with haunting words that nudged her deeper into panic. "Quick, this way!" she shouted, veering into another corridor that branched from the main hall. It twisted like a serpent, each turn hiding another shadow, another whisper that slid through the air like a knife. The house was alive, every creak, every groan was a voice in the din, as if the very walls were part of the sinister tale that sought to ensnare them. Samantha's mind raced. Where were they? Why had they come here? And who or what was trying to claim them? As they reached another door, Samantha twisted the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed in her throat as she banged against the door, desperation driving her movements, cold sweat pooling along her spine. "Let us out!" she yelled, the echoes of her voice swallowed by the hallway's oppressive silence. Behind them, the shadow loomed larger, no longer just a figure but something that felt ancient, powerful, hungry. The chanting grew, twisting into something sinister. Belong, what awaited them behind the door? Was it escape or entrapment, salvation or peril? The handle suddenly turned beneath her grasp, and she could feel the tension building, the weight of fate pressing down. With one last surge of adrenaline, she pushed the door open. A staggering sight lay beyond, a scene that defied comprehension, one where the echoes of the past had come alive once more. Would she save her children, or would they fall into the awaiting darkness of their inheritance? As the door creaked wider, a chilling realization surged through her: it wasn't just about escape anymore. It was about survival against what the Bellamy legacy truly represented. What horrors would they encounter inside the room? And would they emerge whole or shattered? The door swung wide, revealing an expansive chamber that pulsated with an eerie glow. It was a strange, sepulchral ambience, illuminated by flickering candlelight. Shadows lengthened and warped along the walls, sketching grotesque shapes that danced unnaturally. Samantha's heart hammered, each beat urging her to turn back. She stepped inside, dragging Emma and Jake behind her, their little hands clutching tightly to her as if one more slip could mean losing everything. The room was lined with strange artifacts, faded portraits of stern-faced ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow her every movement, and odd symbols etched into the walls in deep crimson. A heavy altar stood at the far end, draped with darkened fabric that whispered secrets from the past. The chanting grew louder now, a haunting chorus that made her bones ache. Belong, the word was a constant, violent push against her sanity. "Please, Mom, let us go," Emma whimpered, her voice barely more than a shiver in the oppressive silence. Jake edged closer to her, his small frame trembling. But there was no turning back. The weight of curiosity and dread pinned them to the spot. As they scanned the room, Samantha's gaze fell upon a weathered book lying open on the altar. The faded pages pulsated rhythmically, as if alive, depicting grotesque images of rituals long past. A twisted, demonic figure loomed over what appeared to be an offering, a young child, its hungry eyes glowing malevolently. This was no ordinary place, this was a chamber of horrors, a testament to the sinister legacy they had stumbled into. "Mom!" Jake's voice cut through her daze as a sudden rush of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles in a blink. Darkness enveloped them, swallowing the flickers of light one by one. Samantha's breath quickened, she felt the shadows closing in, suffocating. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, her voice rising above the chaotic churn of whispers that surrounded them now. But the shadows didn't only consume light, they began to take form, faces twisted in agony, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. No escape. No sanctuary. Only despair and darkness lurked everywhere she turned. Samantha turned towards the altar, desperately searching for a way out, but in that moment, the book began to tremor, reverberating with energy. The deep chant swelled to a deafening crescendo, resonating through her bones, merging with the pulsations of the house, a heartbeat of a long-slumbering beast awakening. Suddenly, it stopped. Silence hung like a heavy fog. And then, a voice emerged from the walls, slithering into her ears like venom. "You are the chosen," it growled, deep and resonant, vibrating with a malice that chilled her core. "You belong." Before she could respond, the shadows lunged forward. They wrapped around Emma and Jake, drawing them back, forcefully into the vortex of the darkness that pulsed behind. "No. Let them go!" Samantha cried, lunging forward as fear coursed through her veins like ice. She reached for them, but the shadows were insurmountable, stealing her children back into a twisting void of despair. The figures in the shadows shifted, revealing their ghastly faces one agonizing second at a time, chanting her name. "Now Samantha belong." Everything spiraled. Her vision blurred. The walls trembled as if the house itself breathed in terror. She was losing them, the voices pulling her children deeper and deeper into a realm she could hardly fathom. Instinct overwhelmed reason, and she grasped the book, flipping through pages filled with inked curses and spells. She needed something, anything, to fight back, to save Emma and Jake. In an instant, words tumbled from her mouth without thought, a prayer, a cry for salvation. "Leave them alone. I am not yours." The darkness hesitated, momentarily stunned. Hope surged with her heart as she pressed on. But what if that prayer unleashed something darker? Something more ancient than even she could imagine? Before she could ponder the cost, shadows surged forward again, ripping Jake from her grasp, pulling him into screaming. "Darkness!" Samantha screamed, hurling the book against the wall, a desperate act in the face of consuming dread. The room shook violently. Would the Bellamy demons unleash their legacy onto them all? As she stood on the precipice of loss, the door behind them slammed shut, sealing their fate. Could she save her children from the grip of the unknown? Or would she too fall victim to the family curse? The walls whispered a sinister melody, their answer buried deep within the shadows. The shadows lunged, thick tendrils of darkness pulling at Samantha's legs like the grasping fingers of the damned. Every part of her screamed to run, but terror anchored her feet to the cold floor. The dread was palpable, it wrapped around her like a shroud. "Mom! Help!" Jake's panicked voice sliced through the suffocating dark. The sound echoed, distorted, rising and falling as if swallowed by an unseen abyss. Emma clung to Samantha, her tiny fingers digging in painfully, but the shadows dragged Jake further away. "No, no. Don't. Please." Samantha stumbled forward, the weight of hopelessness crushing her spirit. She could see them, just out of reach, ensnared by the clawing darkness. Jake's face was a mask of terror, eyes wide, mouth screaming soundlessly. The book lay fractured on the floor, pages fluttering like wounded birds. It whispered at her feet, beckoning. Ritual's power. The words slid like oil into her mind, slick and impossible to ignore. The shadows froze, momentarily distracted by the call of their ancient master. "Remember the chosen belong." The voices were there, interlacing, tangling with the chant rising in the room. And in a reckless moment, Samantha seized the moment. She dropped to her knees, grasping the book with trembling hands, pulling it to her chest as if it could shield her from the encroaching void. "Power," she murmured, betraying her own fear. I seek the power to save them. A light flickered deep within, a sudden, desperate surge that seemed to shatter the gloom in fragments. The shadows hissed, retreating for a breath. Samantha's heart raced. Could she truly command this darkness? She forced her eyes open, focusing on the page before her. The faded ink twisted and danced, revealing a spell too ancient for comprehension. But what choice did she have? Come to my call, she cried, voice steeled with fierce defiance. By blood bonds and sacrifice, I reclaim my children. As she invoked the fragment of a spell, a sudden wind whipped through the room. A ferocious howl escaped the walls as if the house itself protested. The flames of long-dead candles flickered back to life, illuminating the grotesque faces that twisted in the darkness, shrieking in horror at her defiance. Then, an otherworldly screech synchronized with her invocation. Jake vanished deeper into the shadows, his cries now muted, swallowed by the chaos. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but she couldn't leave him, not now. Not ever. Let them go. I command you. Samantha shouted, her voice a mixture of raw motherly fury and despair. The shadows recoiled, the air tinged with a smell like burnt copper and decay. The shadows twisted, reshaping themselves into a massive, undulating figure, a beast formed from fear itself. Fool! It roared, the sound reverberating through the chamber, shaking the air around her. You cannot fight what flows in your blood. I will. Samantha cried, rising to her feet, sheer willpower igniting a flicker of hope in her heart. Each beat resonated against the terror surrounding her. The shadows writhed, their fluid forms shifting violently. Your lineage calls to this darkness. You are bound. It bellowed, laughter echoing around them, clawing at her sanity. She could feel it, the heritage of horrors clawing at her very essence, but love for her children became a rallying cry. The pages began to glow in her grip, slicing through the gloom with blinding light. What if this power was not only a curse? What if it could force the shadows back? Release them. The ground trembled as Samantha felt the pull of something ancient, something powerful. The chanting ceased strangely, the figures momentarily stunned by the sudden light and declaration of defiance. For a moment, she glimpsed an opening, a glimpse of her children fighting against the grasping tendrils, eyes filled with panic yet believing her. Desperate hope surged, giving her strength she didn't know existed. The flickering light danced around her, illuminating the grotesque faces, as the beast loomed closer, its hollow eyes flickering with disdain. Who do you think you are? It sneered, advancing with a twisted elegance. Samantha felt a chill crawl up her spine. But could she really summon the strength to confront the darkness that loomed in her blood? Would this be their salvation or their doom? The light pulsed brighter, and the shadows recoiled, warping in pain. But then, with an almighty roar, the creature lunged at her. As she braced herself for impact, Samantha realized this battle was just beginning. What would she sacrifice to save her children? The walls trembled, whispering dark promises, drowning everything in their haunting echo. With a final clash, all seemed lost. The very fabric of the house pressed against her, and she felt the truth dawning. This was not merely a fight for her children's lives, but for her very soul. What price was she willing to pay to break the curse? What darkness would she have to embrace to save them? And then silence. The silence hung heavy, a breath held too long in the throat of the world. Samantha's heart beat loud in her ears, drowning out the distant whispers of the shadows. The room stood suspended in time, and for a heartbeat, she dared to hope. But hope was a fragile thing here. The beast's roar echoed in the silence, shaking her resolve. Your children are lost. The beast hissed, its voice slithering through the air like smoke. Its form was ever-changing, a grotesque mockery of a creature taking shape from her deepest fears. You cannot save them. You were born to embrace the darkness, not fight it. No. Samantha's voice shook but held firm, a lifeline in the grip of despair. I want to let you take them. I refuse. She could see shadows shifting and twisting, weaving around the edges of the room. The night seemed alive with malice, eager to claim their souls. Jake's screams echoed faintly, caught in the maw of the night like a distant memory. Emma was silent, and that silence pierced through Samantha far more than any scream. The shadows answered her defiance with a low growl. Power is a deceptive beast. You think you can wield it without cost. Samantha felt a tremor run through her, a flicker of uncertainty clawing at the edges of her bravery. But as the light from the book pulsed in her grip, a memory rose up, her children's laughter, the way the sun warmed their faces, the bond of love that knotted them together. It anchored her, a bulwark against the encroaching darkness. She took a step forward. I know the risks. But I will do anything to protect them. If I must face this darkness, then let it come. And with that declaration, the shadows lunged as one, a frenzied wave crashing toward her. Samantha summoned the words from the page, feeling the ancient spell echo in her mind, powerful and overwhelming. By the blood of my blood, I summon the light to cast you back. She shouted, raising the book high. The very air shimmered, thickening with a force she couldn't comprehend, but she felt its presence brimming around her. The shadows stopped, recoiling as if burned. A white-hot light burst forth from the pages, piercing through the darkness. It arced across the room, illuminating monstrous faces twisted in anger and fear. No! The beast howled, its voice becoming uproarious, rippling through the air like a shattered glass. You have no idea what you unleash. Samantha pushed forward, a surge of energy coursing through her veins, the incantation surging like lightning. I know enough. I am their mother, and I will not let you take them. The light expanded, washing over the room, incinerating the creeping shadows like morning mist in sunlight. Shapes writhed in agony, faces twisted in contorted horror as the darkness crumbled away. For a moment, she thought she saw Jake again, his eyes wide with confusion, but then the darkness swallowed him whole once more. Desperation ignited in her chest. Jake! She cried, her voice shattering through the howling chaos around her. Hold on. I'm coming for you. The book's glow intensified, pulsing with her heartbeat, illuminating the grotesque form of the beast. It lunged forward, a fanged maw ready to consume her whole, but she stood her ground, raising her free hand high. This was her moment. She could feel the power surging through her blood, storming in with every heartbeat. Let him go. She unleashed a tidal wave of light, the words erupting into the air like a bomb, shattering the remnants of darkness around her. The beast writhed, caught in the blinding brilliance, its form flickering. You think you can break the bond? You do not realize, your blood is mine. As the shadows began to dissolve, revealing the dim outline of Jake and Emma in the distance, a sudden tremor rocked the very foundation beneath them. Samantha's mind raced. Could she really tear them away from the bonds they had with this beast? And then, from somewhere deep within the bowels of the house, she felt an echoing roar, one that shook her to her core. This wasn't just a fight against shadows, it was a fight against something far more sinister. Just as hope flickered on the horizon, shadows erupted once again, more numerous and more ferocious than before. They clawed at her, reaching for her soul as she closed her eyes, bracing for impact. What price would she have to pay to save her family? The answer loomed like a specter. As she reeled, the house trembled ominously. What if this conflict brought something worse than darkness? Something that had been waiting, and then darkness. The light clashed with the shadows, creating a chaotic battleground. The glow from the book flickered, wavering like a candle in a storm. Samantha's heart raced as the darkness surged. In a desperate bid to shield her children, she ducked and dodged through the nightmarish tendrils, but the clutches felt electric pulsing with despair, urging her to succumb. Come to me. The beast roared, its voice shredding through her consciousness. Give in to your fear. Samantha shook her head, pushing the sound aside, but the shadows began to shift, morphing into faces she recognized. She saw her parents, consumed by the darkness that had claimed them years ago. They stared at her with hollow eyes, their mouths stretched in silent screams. No. She stumbled backwards, her heart pounding like a drum. Their faces faded, replaced by the haunting figures of her children, Jake and Emma, eyes wide with terror. Each glance pierced her like a dagger, the shadows encircled her, closing in, whispering promises laced with dread. You chose this path, dear Samantha. You belong with us. Embrace the darkness. Sweat dripped down her forehead, chilling her skin as the screams of desperate souls filled the air. No. She yelled again, clutching the book tightly. With each beat of her heart, its glow pulsed, urging her forward. By the love that binds us, I will fight. She shouted, feeling an unexpected strength surge through her limbs. The darkness recoiled at her defiance, momentarily confused, but it surged back with a ferocity that stole her breath. It poured forth from every crevice of the room, filling her lungs with a rancid taste that made her gag. Breath hitching, she whispered the incantation again, words spilling from her lips like a lifeline. The light flickered brighter, pushing back against the encroaching dark, but it felt like a losing battle. Shadows ferociously clawed at the edges, mischievous hands reaching for her, gnashing teeth forming from swirling black. Just then, she felt a tug from the depths of her soul. It was a grip so familiar that it felt like a long-lost friend. Her mother's voice resonated in her mind, the true strength lies within. You are never alone. Samantha took a deep breath, as the warmth of that memory enveloped her. It reminded her of snuggles on cold nights and bedtime stories where light always triumphed. The beast was right, she had been born in darkness, but she was also forged by love. With renewed conviction, she thrust the book forward. You cannot have them. She screamed, unleashing a wave of radiant light that engulfed the room in a brilliant explosion. The shadows screamed, twisting and writhing as they fought against the flood, but something shifted behind her, a presence darker than any she had faced. The house groaned, wood creaking under the weight of an unseen force. She turned, heart pounding, her breath caught in her throat. That eye in the corner where shadows thickened, another figure slowly emerged. It was humanoid but distorted, skin slick and glistening. Its eyes were pools of blackness, reflecting a void that threatened to swallow her whole. No, her voice cracked, as she braced herself against the oncoming terror. What if I told you, it hissed, drawing closer, that the darkness is not just a prison, but a home? Join us, Samantha. Accept your legacy. Samantha clenched her fists, desperation clawing at her. I refuse. But as the shadows lunged again, her resolve shook. The beast growled, teeth glinting in the light, and Samantha felt it an unmistakable bond tie her inextricably to this abomination. It was not only her children at stake but something deeper, something rooted in blood. The presence behind her lingered, whispering promises of power, of family lost and found. What she thought was the very essence of darkness now seemed like the only escape. Could she trust it? The light flickered, threatening to extinguish once again. Would she have to embrace the very thing she loathed to save her family? As shadows closed in one final time, her heart raced with fear and anticipation. What darkness lurked within her? Waiting to be unleashed. The air thickened, suffocating as Samantha felt the weight of unseen eyes closing in. Every shadow flickered like a heartbeat, drawing nearer, each whisper a chilling caress on the back of her neck. Her pulse quickened, each beat echoing the battle raging inside her, to fight or to surrender. As the distorted figure advanced, its features becoming clearer, she recognized a twisted form of beauty, a mockery of humanity. It smiled, though its lips curled in a way that twisted her stomach. Face it, dear Samantha. The darkness has always been part of you. You cannot deny your heritage. Heritage, she spat, the word burning her tongue. You mean the legacy of death and despair? The beast chuckled, the sound reverberating in her bones. No. Of power. You possess a gift, Samantha. A gift that could save your family. Just take a step, toward the shadows. The shadows rippled behind the creature, shifting into restless forms, figures of children lost to despair and parents, their faces contorted in eternal grief. A sense of longing clawed at her heart. Could she really protect Jake and Emma from this nightmare while still tethered to the shadows? with every breath she took, more memories emerged, unbidden, laughter echoing in the halls, bedtime stories, braided hair creeping happiness nightmarishly juxtaposed against the dark. But it was the darkness that was now drawing her with an insatiable force. She hesitated as she knelt to catch her breath, the book's warm glow flickered gently, urging her to hold on. "You are a warrior, Samantha. You can break the chains," it whispered, her fingers tightened on the tome, and anger swelled within her. She couldn't let her children be swallowed by shadows that seemed to stretch infinitely. They deserved light, hope, a future free from chains. The creature leered, its eyes shimmering like black ice. "Your fighting force is bigger than you can imagine. Why not claim what is yours? You could unleash the darkness, bend it to your will, imagine what you could do." "No!" Samantha roared, shaking in defiance. "I will never choose your path." The shadows lurched, momentarily recoiling from her strength. But a low growl filled the space, washing over the turmoil, an echo of dread rising up from the depths of the house, from its very bones. The walls thrummed with an ancient rhythm, a primordial chant that seeped into her consciousness and wrapped her heart in a vice. "Join us," the creature cast its net of promises wider, each word a delicate thread. "Or witness your children fall into the abyss. It's not just them that's at stake, Samantha. It's you. Remember, power lies in acceptance." The tremor in Samantha's heart quickened, as an avalanche of doubt cascaded over her. Memories warped and twisted around her, the line between light and dark blurring. What did she truly fear, the darkness or the freedom it promised? As if sensing her faltering resolve, the shadows lunged once more, plunging toward her like a tidal wave, tendrils of despair wrapping around her limbs, threatening to pull her down into darkness. "Accept it," the creature hissed, its breath a putrid fog. Just then, a flash of light erupted from the book, illuminating the room in a blinding eruption. She gripped the tome tighter, shockwaves of energy spiraling around her. In that moment, disparate thoughts collided inside her. Would she unravel the bind between dark and light? Or seal her fate in the family legacy of the Bellamy's cursed empire? What choice would she make when the truth revealed itself, and shadows beckoned? The darkness howled, louder now, threatening to drown her in tumult and despair. Her heart raced, knowing that within this chaos lay a decision that would change everything. Would she turn the light or yield to the void? The chaos swirled around Samantha, a tempest of dark whispers and haunting images that clawed at her mind. Shadows twisted and curled, threatening to engulf her completely. Her heart thundered in her chest as she faced the creature that had emerged from the darkness, a manifestation of all her worst fears and the weight of her family's legacy. In that defining moment, she felt the pull of her children, Jake and Emma, their frightened faces etched in her memory. Was this really the fate her family had chosen for them? Would she allow the curse of the Bellamy name to consume another generation? The room pulsed with tension, a deadly energy crackling in the air, but amid the storm, she discovered a flicker of resolve. "No!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the suffocating darkness like a beacon of light. "I choose the light. I choose my children." With that declaration, she raised the book high, its pages shimmering as if resonating with her determination. The very air shimmered with possibility. The shadows hesitated, the creature snarling in fury as the light began to spread, carving a path through the dark tendrils that sought to bind her. "You cannot escape your heritage," it bellowed, a furious storm of voices echoing in response. But Samantha felt the power surge within her, ancient and potent. The strength came not only from the book but from the love for her children. "By the blood of my ancestors, I reclaim my power. I will not be a prisoner of this darkness," she cried, feeling heat radiate from the tome as it answered her call. In the cacophony, an unexpected warmth enveloped her, building until it ignited into blinding light. The tendrils recoiled as streams of illumination shot through the shadows, illuminating twisted, anguished faces of those who had been trapped in the dark. "Belong no more," she commanded, her voice ringing with authority she didn't know she possessed. In response, the creature writhed, its form mutating in an agonizing spectacle as her defiance ignited a rage that echoed off the walls. You think you can annihilate the darkness? You fool! But with each declaration, the light grew brighter, fueled by Samantha's unwavering love for her children. They deserve joy. They deserve a future without fear. The shadows twisted, shrieking in anger, as the light cut through them, revealing fractured fragments of memories, echoes of past lives caught in selfish desires and desperate bargains. She felt their pain, but she also felt her power grow. Let them go. You do not own them. Samantha cried out, her heart pounding as she pressed forward, determined to rescue what was left of her family from this malevolent force. With each word, she felt the gravity of the shadows weaken. Her energy surged as she pulled the book closer, feeling a bond form between it and her heart. Could she truly wield this power? In a moment of clarity, she realized the truth: the darkness had no hold over her anymore. It thrived on fear and despair, but her love created light, and light always drove out darkness. The air thickened with tension as shadows clashed against her radiant energy. Your defiance brings only destruction. The creature snarled, but desperation turned to panic in its twisted features as sunlight erupted around Samantha, obliterating the remnants of its power. Suddenly, she saw movement in the depths of the shadows. A familiar shape struggled against the tendrils. It was Jake. "Mom!" he shouted, eyes wide with fear. Emma's face followed, filled with tears. "Help us. Hold on. I'm coming," she called, pushing through the onslaught of darkness, fighting with everything she had. She extended her hand towards them, the radiant light surrounding her like armor. "Stay with me. We're almost there." The shadows howled, tightening their grip, but as Samantha stepped forward, the surge of energy from the tome encased them in a protective barrier. The shadows flickered, pulled back from the radiant force. She lunged, grasping hold of her children, feeling their warmth return. Jake's small hand slipped into hers, Emma clinging tight. "I won't let you go," Samantha promised, her heart surging as she felt the weight of generations surge through her. The light grew brighter, weaving a tapestry of protection against the encroaching shadows that still clawed at them. "We belong together," she screamed, summoning her love as a powerful shield against the shadow's grasp. The oppressive darkness began to collapse, shrieking in protest as it burned away in the radiant glow emanating from Samantha and her children, the bond forged in love stronger than any curse. As the shadows shrank back, the chamber's ambience changed, the oppressive weight lifted. The book vibrated violently, light erupting from it and surrounding them in pulsing waves. With one last excruciating scream, the creature blurred, shadows dissolving in the light. The room brightened until it was almost blinding, the last remnants of darkness flickering away like ash in the wind. And then silence and encompassing quiet where the echo of the chant had once resonated. Together, they stood in the stillness. Samantha pulled Jake and Emma close, tears running freely down her cheeks, a release of all the fear that had gripped her heart. "I'm so proud of us," she whispered, holding them as a shimmering halo of warmth enveloped the trio. The shadows of the Bellamy legacy shattered, leaving behind a path for a new beginning. They had faced their past, fought against the darkness, and emerged victorious. Love had broken the curse. As they stepped through the doorway into the light of a new dawn, Samantha felt the fear melt away. They were their own family now, ready to build a future, free from the chains of history and darkness. "Let us go home," she smiled, hand in hand with her children, where the warmth of sunlight welcomed them, leaving the whispers and shadows behind for good. But amidst the relief, an echo lingered, a haunting reminder of the darkness they had bested. Survival had come at a cost, and Samantha knew that shadows would always linger at the periphery. But they had chosen life, and as long as they held on to each other, the light would never fade, for the Bellamy legacy had not only been a burden, it was now their strength, a shared vow to stand against the darkness every day. Together, they would thrive. Now, before you go, there's something important you need to do. You need to subscribe now to catch more heart-pounding stories like this one. Smash that like button to show your support. Every click helps the channel grow. And don't forget to flood the comments with your thoughts about this wild finale. Share your theories and reactions, because we want to hear from you. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world, it keeps the stories coming and keeps us going. Let's keep this community alive.